exclusively at Asda.
Hello there, so even taking a look at tomorrow's newspapers with the Rehman Chishti, Tory MP, and the former Lib Dem MP, Mark Oaken. Welcome back to both of you. Education, Britain not doing too well. Daily Mail story.
Story in the Mail, you remember education, Blair, lots of money going to schools, you'd expect that to have a big impact. Absolutely not. This story shows that after lots of investment, we're plummeting in the international league tables. Horrendous stories. From maths, we've gone from 8th in terms of our ability for our students, right down to 28th. We're behind Poland, Slovakia, Estonia. In science, we're down to 16th. In reading, we're down to 25th in the league tables. It's an appalling suggestion that all this money actually hasn't resulted in anything better. And the surprise is top everywhere. Who is it? China.
China, who's invested huge amounts into education to no longer produce the cheap-end goods, the toys and so on. They're investing for the future to take on Japan, Germany, the UK in high-class, high-end manufacturing goods. It's going to be fascinating in the future.
And there is, in harsh reality, in that league table, we are now in serious trouble, according to this.
Let's move on to another story, not about education, but about prison reforms. This is in The Sun.
I think it's a very important topic to look at. And I was in the House today when Ken made the statement, and I think this heading over here, get out of jail free, it's completely wrong. What we had to look at, in terms of reforming sentencing, and on the basis of rehabilitation, in terms of offenders, young offenders, who committed a crime, went inside, over 74% came out within a year, committed a crime again. In terms of adult offenders, over 60% went inside, came out, and were, committing crime again, actually. And if you want to, end that cycle of crime in the long term, you have to make sure they get the right rehabilitation. And the point here about going back on the pledge of knife crime is completely wrong. I think what we've made quite clear, anyone who uses a knife will be sent to prison. But it's about respecting, judicial discretion. And the fundamental point we had from previous government, they made legislation for the sake of making legislation to see they're doing something. For example, the Violent Crime Reduction Act increased the sentence from 2 years to 4 years. But how many times did judges ever use it? They hardly ever used it. What you had to look at is to deal with gang culture, which deals with, having people advice.
You lot did not help for decades. You ratcheted up as Conservatives. You would sort of chuck them in jail, throw away the key. I remember being described by you lot as Britain's most dangerous politician when I said we should be educating prisoners. I'm delighted about this. You're reformed offenders, as far as I'm concerned. It's good news.
The whole problem is it won't happen either. You said violent acts were brought in and they didn't do anything. You may have seen Jason Powell's reports, talking to a prisoner in Bullingdon Prison in Oxfordshire, who said he's been in a year, nobody has asked him why he offends. All he does is sits for 3 hours on his bed doing nothing.
But,
nobody is trying to rehabilitate him. And the question is, will the public have confidence that there will be any alternative to prison?
But this is at the heart of this Green Paper in terms of having rehabilitation, having support, and it's great to see Mark agreeing with me on that, because that's exactly what it's about. Simply giving somebody a custodial sentence means absolutely nothing, because they'll go inside, they'll come out and they'll do it again. 3 elements: punishment, deterrence and rehabilitation. Unless you get a rehabilitation right, you're not going to make it work, and Ken's got it absolutely right.
Well, let's see if we see the rehabilitation. That's the point, isn't it, really? Let's move on to The Times. Their front page, which was brought up by the State Department briefing, I think, in the States this afternoon, that China is using its muscle, it seems quite effectively, to reinforce this Nobel Peace Prize ban.
I mean, this is quite an interesting story, because obviously you have the big announcement coming up for the Nobel Peace Prize. You've got China boycotting Mr. Liu, but what they've done is they've pulled together an alliance of other countries who are also now going to boycott.
It's an interesting list as well, isn't it?
It's a real insight as to basically the international world lining up as to who's in favour of good human rights and who's against. And the list of Vietnam, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Russia, Iran, there's some tricky names in that list, but it's a very, very harsh reminder of where the world divides on these issues.
Absolutely. Now then, Wills and Kate, A Bishop's Guide to a Happy Marriage. What's this one about in the Daily Mail?
Well, I think it's about having a pep talk with the bishop beforehand in terms of how to ensure their marriage goes a long and blissful marriage. I think it's great, and I think the church has a key role to play. And I think the important thing is having the same bishop, who was there with the family after the death of Princess Diana, gave that support. And it's having that continuity, and I think it's great for them to be given some advice, given some support at the very beginning, so they can have a wonderful marriage. I'm very positive.
There's a lot of it's quite a bit of overkill, isn't it? Because there's not only going to be the Bishop of London, but the Archbishop of Canterbury is going to be having a little chat, and Kate is also having providing individual counselling as well. They're going to be the most prepared couple in Britain ever at this rate. Blimey.
Let's talk about some weather stories, because obviously it's absolutely freezing across many parts of Britain. But the Daily Express has a bit of ice madness. Once again, somebody trying to save a dog.
It's extraordinary.
It's a different story on there, isn't it? But I think you picked both of them. Tell us about both of them.
It's extraordinary. You know, the British love for animals is so enormous that the picture in the Express is of a woman literally walking across the ice, ploughing into the water, trying to save a dog. And as always happens on these occasions, of course, the dog just happily paddles out. And the person's left in quite a dangerous situation. And you know, there's a serious side to this. In a couple of weeks ago, somebody died trying to rescue their dog, and I think that the Express and the Royal Society for Prevention of Accidents are really saying, please, however upsetting it may be, do not walk on the ice.
It happened last year, didn't it? I mean, the number of lives claimed is extraordinary, but it's so tempting, isn't it?
But I think it's getting that message out there. You know, if you've got somebody or a pet in that position, get help rather than simply put yourself in danger.
I know. But the headline we saw is the big freeze is here to stay as temperatures plunged to -20. I certainly got a text off a friend in Inverness this morning, -17 she said, and she's in a glen that gets no sun for the whole of the winter, so that's quite miserable.
The phone was still working. It wasn't all miserable.
Actually, I don't know if she's at work by then, but anyway, but the whole point is the temperatures are here to stay. The snow that's fallen just doesn't disappear when it's
not, and I think certainly down in Kent, where I was, you know, we were snowed out on Thursday, could not get into London, so public transport has to be improved so that people have the information, that they know how, but equally the elderly have to take care in these difficult winter conditions so that, you know, they can preserve themselves.
Yeah. Now then, some pictures of Samantha Cameron coming out, just to warn you that it's got a lot of flash photography all over it, but she seems to be upstaging people in the fashion stakes, new mother or not. Her picture is across most of the newspapers, but let's take a look at an event early this evening, the British Fashion Awards 2010, looking absolutely fabulous once again. It's amazing, isn't it?
Well, I think the great thing is Sam does not have to try. She's absolutely stunning and very elegant, whereas with Posh, she has to try quite hard.
That's your
But with Sam, you know, having seen her at conferences, exceptionally down to earth, but having the elegance and looking stunning without making an effort is great.
And had a baby, what? Not that long ago.
On holiday is all I remember about it, but was it the summer therefore? I can't remember.
Great headline in the Telegraph, because of course, you know, Beckham's nickname was Posh, but they've now called Sam Cam Posh, so it's Posh and Victoria, which is
very
a nice twist.
Mark Oaten, Rehman Chishti, good to have you both with us. The weather is next, so back in just a second or two.